Thought for the day. Self-control is simply a matter of thought control.
Welcome to 7 Minutes for Yourself. I'm Christina, and I'm so glad you've joined me for what I believe will be 7 of the most enriching minutes of your day. Let's take this time to reconnect with ourselves and improve our well-being.
In today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself, we learn how to incorporate assertive communication into our daily lives. Have a listen.
First, many people communicate passively. That's the first type we'll talk about. This means they essentially avoid expressing themselves. They have something that's on their mind, but they don't say it. And the trouble with this is that other people cannot read our minds. And that means there's a very low likelihood that we're going to get our needs met if we don't talk clearly about what they are in the first place. A passive communicator is likely to quietly accept other people's positions. They'll say to themselves, well, I'll just let the other person have their way. But over time, it becomes a pattern. Driving forces behind passive communication could be fear, a desire to avoid conflict, or just a lack of confidence to speak up. Next, aggressive communication is dominating. People who communicate aggressively do a lot of blaming, attacking, and finger pointing. They'll say things like, it's all your fault, or you're an awful person. They're really pushy with their views, and they want to be in control of the situation. I used to work with a really aggressive communicator. They used lots of you language, and they escalated conversations. You. This person would cut people off in mid-sentence, used a frustrated or angry tone. They waved their arms all over the place as they talked. They had a collection of tactics they used to dominate other people. That brings us to assertive communication, which is direct and respectful. A driving force behind this is the value of mutual respect. That's a theme. The assertive communicator is going to say what's on their mind really clearly, but they also respect the opinions of others. Assertive communication means you state your preference, but you're not attempting to silence or control others. Instead of you language, like aggressive communicators, assertive communicators use what we call I language. So instead of saying you are causing the delay, they say I'm concerned about the delay. In other words, they own their perspective. So let's look at these 4 tips to communicate more assertively. First, make sure that you are genuinely calm and under control before you start the conversation. If you still have any negative emotions simmering beneath the surface, they will leak through if you rush it. One way to make sure you're calm enough is to sleep on it and wait another 24 hours. I often have a good night's sleep right before an important conversation, and it really does help me stay composed. I've never regretted waiting another 24 hours to talk. Another tip to make sure that you are genuinely composed is to draft out your message a few times. I do this. I draft it out. I read it out loud privately, and then I put it aside for a while. I get some distance, and then I come back and revise it to take any remaining emotional edges off it, and then I practice it again. I sometimes revise a message 3 or 4 times to take all of the stink out of it until I feel like I'm ready to say what needs to be said in a composed way that's genuine. These revisions help me boil down the message all the way to its essence as well. So it's really clear, concise, and doesn't have anything left that might escalate my own emotions as I express myself. I don't always take my written talking points into a conversation, but I at least have them in my head by then. And you'll know you're ready when your composure feels sincere. Second, say what needs to be said as directly and respectfully as possible. One key tip for saying this respectfully is to focus on your part of the conversation, your message. Don't attempt to control the outcome or control what the other person does as a result of what you've said. Don't play that conversational chess game in your head before the interaction. There's a funny scene from the show The Office. Andy comes back to work from an anger management workshop because he had punched a hole in the wall, and Jim immediately tries to make Andy angry again. But Andy stays calm by repeating what they taught him in the workshop. He says out loud, I can't control what you do. I can only control what I do. And there's wisdom in this. Control has a lot to do with our communication problems. Aggressive communication attempts to control others. Passive-aggressive communication is, at least in part, about feeling out of control. So if you can let go of a desire to control the situation, it's very liberating, and you can just say what you need to for your part. And once you've expressed yourself directly and respectfully, you've done most of your job here. You also then respect the other person's right to have their own point of view and give them space to talk about it. Third, use I language. Let's expand on what we said earlier about this. I language literally means focusing on your thoughts and feelings by phrasing your point of view with the word I instead of you. I language doesn't solve every problem, but it's one really helpful tool to start conversations on the right foot. Instead of saying, "You're giving me too much work," you would say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work I have." Instead of, "You're ignoring my concerns," say, "I'm not feeling my concerns are being heard yet." I language allows the other person to hear your concern without feeling like they have to defend themselves. It positions the other person as a potentially helpful person who can then take a step toward you rather than positioning them as a potential enemy. When I teach I language, lots of people struggle with this. They start with I, but then they sneak a you in there. They'll say things like, "I feel like you are ignoring me," or "I'm concerned that you are going to make us miss our deadline." They still want to sneak a bit of blame into the message. If this sounds like how you might approach this, I recommend revising the message a little more with I language and make sure that you're not trying to sneak any you language in there at all. Fourth, be a good listener. Once you've said your piece, hear them out. Let them tell their story. This means all the basic things that we expect with good listening, like maintaining eye contact when you listen and when you talk, maintain supportive, comfortable facial expressions as you listen. It means asking relevant questions with a genuine motivation to understand where they're coming from. Good listening provides enough conversational space to let them say what's on their mind. Good listening demonstrates that theme of mutual respect that we've been talking about. Another benefit is they are more likely to reciprocate and attempt to listen well to you. Listening well is not just professional, it's also classy. It communicates honor and respect. And remember, you can't control them or make them listen to you, but you can set the right tone by being a good listener and leading by example. Listening patiently is also important. Sometimes you'll hear something and you'll be tempted to immediately jump in with your reaction. It's a much better idea to listen carefully, ask a few questions to make sure you fully understand the other person before you react. That'll also give you a moment to make sure that your response is assertive but not aggressive.
That concludes today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Today and every day with your kiddo is a gift. Enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in.